And so I see so many times ego play a part in stagnation of leaders. So the question is, how did I make the shift? I was humbled. And I was humbled not because we didn't perform, we did perform. But see, when you perform and have to start all over with all new teachers and have to read about, yes, you may be a great principal, but you're not a great leader, things of that nature. You have to humble yourself to say, I don't want to be this way.
This is the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with your host, Vicki Davis.
Today, I'm so honored to welcome Dr. Samuel Nix. He's an award-winning educator and leader, and his transformative work has reshaped school cultures across Texas. He is the Chief Academic Officer of Duncanville Independent School District, and he is author of 6 Steps to Strong School Culture. And Sam, you won a lot of awards. I could just name all of them, but it's pretty resounding. You have 800 teachers that work with you in your district. How does it feel to be Chief Academic Officer when you have so many classrooms that you work with?
Well, the first thing I feel is honored. And the second thing I feel is blessed. Do what we do. It's a privilege. And that's a cliche that a lot of people say, but we have the privilege and the opportunity to impact students. And it's not something that is taken lightly. It's not something I take lightly. Very passionate about the work of student learning and student achievement and equipping and preparing teachers to have the resources that they need to be successful. So it feels great. It feels humbling, but it also feels very daunting in a sense that I should always be as prepared as I can because students are counted.
So when you visit a classroom, what do you look for in an excellent classroom?
In an excellent classroom, I look for, number one, structure. Is there a structure and a culture that is conducive to learning? I look for, is there a relationship where the learning is relevant for the student, where the student is enjoying their learning, where the student is passionate about what they're learning? I look for, is there what I'm going to call aligned, if you will? Is there an aligned lesson between what the teacher is trying to convey and what she's actually assessing or he is assessing with students? But ultimately, is it a place where students enjoy it? And how do I know? And how can I tell that? And when I talk to the students, are they there trying to get through it? Or are they enjoying it?
So your expertise is transforming school culture. There's classroom culture and then there's school culture. And when you have an amazing school culture, it does make it easier to build a great classroom culture. So how do you go about shaping a school culture?
Well, one of the things that you just mentioned is so appropriate because we have all seen the student that goes to teacher A's classroom and is a saint, right? And goes to teacher B's classroom and, oh my goodness, right? So the goal is how to create a culture where not just students, but also staff, parents, everyone that's in the culture appreciates quality relationships, appreciates quality instruction focused on learning, and enjoys being there. And it starts with leadership. It starts with the example, the mindset, the language of the leader. And so when I am talking about shifting school cultures, and when I work with principals and I work with schools and I work with school districts and I work with companies with shifting a culture, I hear so many times people say, well, it starts bottom up. And I don't disagree with that, but the leader sets the tone, and what the leader allows or doesn't allow, what the leader sets the tone for or doesn't set the tone for, what the leader warns and holds accountable for, really makes a sustainable difference. So really, how we reach shifting the culture, of course, we work with everyone, but it starts with the leadership of the district, the leadership of the campus, the leadership of the department. It starts with the person who sets the tone for that particular campus.
Fascinated with what you said about the language of leadership. Could you contrast perhaps successful language? And we all know that language has to be backed up by action, so that's just assumed. But let's talk about, successful language versus language that may not have the impact that a leader thinks it'll have.
I love it. So I'm going to use an analogy, or no, actually, I'm going to use a true story. Okay. So I have a sister. I have a younger sister. Her name is Sharice. So my sister and I were born in Arlington, Texas. Okay. So we speak like Texans. Okay. I don't know if you can hear it in
I do.
my drawl, right? We say things like ball, just Texas language. So my sister, when she graduated high school, she went to college in Louisiana. She went to college at Dillard University in New Orleans. After a semester, she came back home, Vicky, and she was speaking with a dialect that was foreign to the family.
Mm.
She was speaking with almost like a Cajun dialect. And I was like, Sharice, you don't talk like that. Like, why are you talking like that? And what I realized was she was talking like the environment that she was in. And I'm using that as an example because leadership is about solving problems. Leadership is about not complaining about the problem, not pointing out the problem, not complaining about how someone else didn't solve the problem. Leadership is about identifying issues and problems and working to solve them. That's why leadership is there, to solve problems. So when you have people who talk about why they can't be, when you have people who talk about all of the barriers and all of the challenges and all of the issues, it amazes me how many leaders talk and complain about the thing that they're hired to solve.
Wow.
So leadership talk, when I say leadership talk and I talk about language, I can hear a leader. Because when I'm in the presence of a leader, I hear possibility. I hear solution. I hear problem solving. I hear strategy. It's not that they don't focus on the problem, but they don't prioritize it. So to me, the leadership language is a language that helps people and the organization reach the vision, not language that talks about all of the reasons that inhibits them from reaching the vision. So much like my sister, when I'm around really great, high performing leaders, I can hear it. And I ask leaders all of the time, if I were to talk to your staff, if I were to talk to your team, what do they sound like? What's their dialect? What are they focusing on? Because they have learned and now they're in an environment where they're complaining, where they are talking about people, talking about the problem, being negative. That is not conducive to transformation. That's not conducive to improvement. That's conducive to stagnation or regression.
Wow. I've taught 23 years and I've been on multiple sides and it's incredible how you'll take the same group of educators and have an administrative change. And it's almost like things change overnight for the good or for the negative. Let's talk about leadership for a moment. Every leader faces setbacks. Can you share a time when things did not go as planned and how you used that experience to grow as a leader and move forward?
Well, fortunately, I have a lot of those, but I will use an example that I use in the book. And that example is, because I became a principal at a very young age. And as a principal, I had all of the book knowledge. I had what I considered to be intelligence, and by golly, the superintendent and board trusted me to lead. And I had all of the certifications and the qualifications, and I'm going to turn this school around. And Vicky, actually, we were successful. So I had one of the lowest performing schools in our district at the time. And in 1 year, we were able to turn that school around from low performing at the time to a higher performing school. The problem is I had to deal with multiple grievances. The problem is my staff turnover was extremely high. The problem is I built no relationships. I got the work done, but I got it done in such a way that nobody wanted to be with me. Nobody wanted to stay with me. And although the impact was there, it was bloody, it was messy, it was hard, and I developed a reputation of not a good person
Wow.
or a good leader because I was so focused on the results and on the outcome. What I learned from that is many years later, I learned that leaders get things done with and through. And I learned that the outcome, the whatever it is that we're trying to achieve, number one, you don't get anything done by yourself. And number two, you can drive people to the point of frustration. You can drive them to their tired. You can drive them, but you'll lose them. And at the end of the day, you got to start on. And so the lesson that I learned is the importance of investing in people, honoring people, working with people, developing people, empowering people, building capacity in people while getting good stuff. And I tell you what, we've been able to reach a higher degree of success that way than before.
Well, first of all, I applaud you for your transparency because in leadership, we have to talk about the setbacks. But here's the thing, and you have changed. You saw it and you changed. So what did you do to change your reputation because now with all the awards you've received and all the accolades you get within your own organization as well, you don't have a reputation. You have a reputation as a good leader, as a strong leader. How did you make that shift and what did you do?
You know, the number one thing that kills leaders, the number one killer of leaders is ego. And what ego does not allow a leader to do is humble themselves. So when you humble yourself, you're able to understand. When you humble yourself, you're able to consider alternative perspectives. When you humble yourself, you're able to connect with people on a different level so that you can help them get to the level that they are capable of getting to. What ego does is shut you off. It shuts you off to perspectives. It shuts you off to possibilities. It shuts you off to things that you may not be open to or have been open to. And so I see so many times ego play a part in stagnation of leaders. So the question is, how did I make the shift? I was humbled. And I was humbled not because we didn't perform, we did perform. But see, when you perform and have to start all over with all new teachers and have to read about, yes, you may be a great principal, but you're not a great leader, things of that nature. You have to humble yourself to say, I don't want to be this way.
Yeah.
Much of who we become is a result of our experiences, and much of who we are is a result of our choices. And so just like I made a choice to not listen, I made a choice to listen. And just like I made a choice to be so focused on outcome, I made a choice to be so focused on the people that could help get to that outcome. And so as I've studied since that time, of course, I've earned a doctorate degree. I have been all over literally the United States and even internationally, working with leaders, coaching leaders, continuing to study about leadership. It has been an absolute pleasure to continue the journey of leadership. And so you use the term expert, not at all, but I'm a continual learner in how do you get the best out of people and how do you get the best results for children? And I have learned that when you humble yourself, that you position yourself better to relate to people, to learn, and to grow.
I would also say that teachers who are more humble are better teachers. One reason I'm so passionate about technology when I work with our teachers is that it gives us the capability to assess formatively in ways we never could before. I'm absolutely passionate about the changes that need to happen in assessment. So what are your views on assessment, formative, summative, and what you kind of like to see in your classrooms in such a large district?
Yeah, well, I think, thank you for asking that question. I think that when it comes to assessments, there has to be, or at least as I see it, there should be a shift in how we look at assessing students. Oftentimes, every assessment that we have is tied to a grade. Every assessment that we give a student is tied to pass or fail or 70 or whatever the case may be. And I see that there is a huge gap when it comes to understanding assessment of learning, assessment for learning, assessment during learning, formative assessment, summative assessments, lag data versus lead data measures. And so part of what we do in our district, and as I do as I work with leaders and teachers, is really help them to understand the importance of and purpose of assessments. So formative assessments, I think, and the question I always ask, and the question I ask in the book is this: why oftentimes is the scoreboard off during practice for any sports?
Well, because they're practicing, right?
Because they're practicing.
Yeah.
And when we practice, it's okay to fail, because what I'm doing in that practice is I'm honing my skill. When I'm practicing, I'm getting feedback. When I'm practicing, I'm using that feedback to build on my skills. When we're practicing, it's a safe place to mess up and to fall and to whatever, because I'm honing those skills. But what we often tend to do is grade the practice.
Oh,
And so when we fall, when we fail, there's a consequence for everything. And that's the model that we have just grown up in. And so that's the model we continue to use. The other thing to that is when it comes to assessing and or formatively or summatively, we have to assess as much as possible how we play. And so assessments at the level of the standard, assessments aligned to the standard are very critical, but that's what the formative assessments do. It gives the teacher, it gives the leaders information that they need to know what type of feedback to give, to know how to support, to know what to do to build that student up in preparation for that summative assessment. Summative assessments shouldn't be a surprise to anyone.
I had 2 formative assessments today. I'm teaching binary numbers to my AP Computer Science Principles course. And so I gave them an assessment in a technology tool. And, the first thing they said is it's graded. I'm like, guys, I'm seeing how well I've taught you right now. This is practice. We're practicing to see, because, a test should never be a surprise. I'm always going to know ahead of time, how are my students doing? Because formative assessment is just part of the DNA of the classroom. And, as you talk about this, is so refreshing, because it just seems like, to me, there's a lot of misunderstandings of formative assessment. The first thing that happens a lot of times when I teach teachers how to do formative assessment, they're like, hey, this will give me more grades to put in my grade book. You're like, no, it's not. Please, no.
The other piece of that is this that I just like to share for consideration. Just consider it. Think about everything in life that we get feedback on. There is nothing that improves without feedback. I'm going to say that again. Vicki, there is nothing that improves without feedback.
Yes.
Nothing. Our lives are full of feedback. So for an example, get in your car. Your car is designed to do nothing but give you feedback. You look at how often do you look at your gas gauge? How often do you look at your speedometer? How often do you look at whatever it is, right? Your whole dashboard does nothing but give you what?
Feedback.
It gives you feedback because you make adjustments based on the feedback that you're getting in that car. The scale, when you get on, it just gives you feedback. Think everything in life gives you feedback. We make adjustments based on that feedback so that we don't find ourselves on the side of the road asking, why did I run out of gas?
Yeah.
Run out of gas. Right? But if you choose to do nothing with that feedback, if you choose not to take action, if you choose not to take the corrective action, then you're going to find yourself in that situation. I equate that to formative assessment, right? We're constantly, or should be constantly providing feedback based on what we are learning or what we're seeing so that we and students can make the necessary adjustments to be successful.
This is just fantastic. This has been Dr. Samuel Nix, author of The 6 Steps to a Strong School Culture. Thanks for coming on the show, Sam.
Thank you for having me. I certainly appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. Watch the video version of this podcast and catch my new radio and TV show, Cool Cat Teacher Talk, on YouTube and a radio or TV station near you. Join my Cool Cat Teacher Classroom Matters newsletter at coolcatteacher.com/newsletter. Leave a review if you found this helpful. See you later, educator.